it's not about women. This is how men relate to other men. This is men challenging other men.
If you've ever said, I just need him to understand, if you've ever found yourself just explaining again and again why this person is hurting you and begging them to change, this episode is absolutely for you. And I am joined again by someone who is a guest in season 1, and it was an incredible episode that you absolutely need to check out. But I'm joined by a therapist, Aishia Grevenberg, who is the perfect person to talk to about this because you are so real talk, you really just say what this is. And I love how you just cut through the noise. So if anybody hasn't met you from the first episode, can you just quickly tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yes, I love telling folks how I got to this point. So the only thing I have ever done in my entire career is mental health. That's all I've done. So I graduated in we're going to go ahead and date ourselves, 2002. So from that moment until this moment, I've been working with people, and I've actually worked with psychopaths, and I've worked with them in a way that a lot of therapists have not. So I have the lived experience of working with psychopaths and their families. I've worked in jails with them. I've been in jails. I've been in a jail riot, girl. We can just talk about all of this work that I've done. And then for the past 10 years, I've been in private practice. So I've been working exclusively, mostly with women and with men. I do have a lot of men that I work with that are in abusive relationships. And so I have a lot of experience with this. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. I live in Las Vegas. I live in Mexico. I'm a rich auntie. I do all the things, but this is something I'm very passionate about.
And I'm so glad you are, because I watch a lot of your content online and I'm always like, yes, she gets it. I love this. So I've known you for years through online, and I just always love watching your videos and talking to you. And I know that you're going to have a hot take on this topic about the men that just don't care. This often gets framed as a miscommunication. He doesn't understand. And I know, man, I felt that way. I was always like, he doesn't get it, so I need to explain it. And then he doesn't get that, and it must be the way I'm wording this. I must need to give him an example. What if I relate it to his life? What if I use an example where if this happened to him at work, then I was always twisting myself to make him understand. And one day, this reality just slammed me. He knows. He knew the whole time.
And this is the thing. These men go to work every day. They communicate well at work. A lot of them are in leadership positions at work. A lot of them have degrees. A lot of them, they have friends. They play basketball. You communicate all day playing basketball. They on the video games, they're talking all the time. So you communicate well. Communication is not your issue. You are dedicated to misunderstanding me. That is what's going on. And see, that's what we have a hard time accepting, that these men have no issue. Communication is not the issue, never has been, never will be. Period.
Full stop. Damn.
Yeah.
You said something which is actually a little bit what inspired this in our first episode that we did in season 1, that abusive men are not going to change in therapy. And I want to connect this to this topic, which is really, can he change, and it's communication. The framing of it's a communication issue, I think, is what leads people to tell him he needs therapy, whether that's individual or couples work. But this concept that he can be helped in therapy because it's a communication issue. Couples therapy often frames it like, okay, here's how we can communicate better. Why does this miss the mark?
Here's the thing, girl. So I was in a training because earlier this year, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start treating couples, right? I always give couples counselors the blues. I'm like, I'm going to treat them. But before I do that, I'm going to take a course. I'm not just going to hop in there and say, I've been doing this a long time. I can work with this population, full stop. I went to a course. I'm not even going to name the course, right? I went to the course, and a part of the training was a couple. There was domestic violence in the relationship. And the training, this is couples training I just took this year, a couple months ago. The therapist was saying that domestic violence is an outside issue, and that the man is working on a domestic violence in therapy. And in the therapy session with the couples, I'm about to jump up out my chair. In the therapy session, that communication, you have to learn how to communicate and ask him how he's feeling. This is the training I just had. I just had this training. I'm not making it up. When I tell you I was melting, These were all new therapists. And this is the training that they're getting, all new therapists. I was one of the only ones that had any type of experience there. And this is being taught, like domestic violence is an outside issue. He's yelling because you're not listening to him.
Which teaches what these men want us to teach. And I maybe want to ask you, who was the trainer?
So this is a very, very popular approach. I'm not going to call them out, but a very popular approach to couples therapy. That's why I chose this one. I'm like, I'm going to do the whole training, get the whole thing. When I tell you, I was so angry. This is what is being taught. And so the man, I'm not making this up. The man got angry with her and she was in the bedroom and he ripped the sheets off the bed, really angry in her face to intimidate her. It wasn't called out as intimidation. It wasn't called out as him trying to assert dominance and scaring her. She even said, well, I'm really scared. And the therapist was like, well, did you tell him that?
Did you tell him that you're scared? As if you can freely tell someone that you're scared of that you're scared. Because I got to tell you, I don't know about you, I made that mistake once. I told my abuser, you're scaring me. And it actually escalated the situation beyond anything I could describe to you. He hit his lid. You're scared. You're scared. Oh my God. You're ridiculous. You're acting like a victim. Like, it made him so much more angry, which made me more scared. And then I was backtracking, like, not scared. I just meant you're trying to like trip over my words to get myself out of the situation. But look at the framing of that. And to be fair, I meant what gender was the trainer, but not necessarily to name the person, but it sounds like it was a man.
It was a woman.
That's worse, somehow.
Yes, it's much worse. And of course, I asked, I'm like, this is unsafe. This is a safety issue. In the chat, I'm going insane. And she was like, well, that's a training. That's a higher training. So you want me to pay more money to figure out how to work with couples that are having this issue, but you're telling me to do it this way now. This is what's happening. And mental health is really being pushed where it's inappropriate. And the idea that individual therapy is the answer for everything is inaccurate. It's just inaccurate. And when you think about, okay, my dude is being abusive to me and I'm scared of him. If you are scared of him, why are you sending him to my office? You understand what I'm saying? Like, what? I'm scared too. What do you mean?
Yeah. Why do
He's you? Right. He loves you and he talks to you crazy. How is he going to talk to me? Why would I put myself in a situation with someone who's dangerous? I'm not set up to manage that type of behavior. No individual therapist is. These men are stalking. They'll call you. They'll harass you. If they do that to you, what do you think they're going to do to me? It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. They're not going to learn about their behavior because they don't listen to women. And so in groups with men where they can communicate with each other, and I've led groups like this, that is much more beneficial to have a man say to another man, you know what, that was wrong. That's not how you treat a woman, bro. Like, what's going on? Like, talk to us about how you feel. You know what I mean? Like, in that setting where they can communicate with each other, that's way more effective. But that's back and forth communication with me is not going to make him stop hitting you or being abusive to you.
If only talking solved these problems, you know? You once said that it's a sociological issue.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's why it's not going to work in therapy. Can you kind of explain what you meant by that?
Sure. So the idea that patriarchy gives men the authority and the permission to use their dominance to intimidate people and to be purposely infantile, right? So it's like I'm in control, but I'm also infantile. Like I have these big emotions that have to take up the room and you have to acquiesce. And so there's all this tit for tat that is deeply ingrained in men from a cultural perspective that just talking about it is not going to undo. This is indoctrination. And so to understand that, there needs to be a sociological shift where, you know what, it's not okay for you not to pay child support. It's not okay for you to be abusive to your wife. But what happens is men are pedestalized for this behavior because they're powerful and other men want their power. They don't want to make sure women are not being oppressed and abused. They want that power. And so when you have that narrative, how am I going to convince any man that Diddy is a problem when Diddy's a billionaire? What man is going to say, I don't want $1 billion. I don't want $1 billion. The narrative is that when you have a certain amount, you can do whatever you want. And as long as that is appealing, what is therapy going to do? How are we going to convince men that there is a benefit to treating women like people? What's the benefit? You going to get $1 million?
Yeah, they don't see a benefit. I think it's
No,
so important to know that men are giving something up when they, I'm majorly air quoting the word allow women to have equality. Men feel that in fact, I saw a video today of some dude going on about how he, I think he said he's a Gen Z, and that tracks. He did not agree. His generation did not agree to let women behave the way they're behaving right now. It's the older generations, the boomers and the Gen Xers who, quote, let women behave this way now. So how long do we, quote, dumb women think they're going to let us go on like this? Let
mm,
us keep treating men this way. I literally watched the video with my mouth open the entire
I
time.
know.
Because to be fair, the word let, I think I went deaf after that. There's an automatic belief system, which is really what we're talking about here, this baked in patriarchal belief that they have the ability to let us do or not do anything. That's like he walked face first into the problem. Why does he think that? It's the same with the men who think, we built the world, women are living in the world we built. You didn't let us build anything, and now you want gratitude for all the things you restricted us from. Are you crazy? So I would love to know, and I'm asking sarcastically, how you, a therapist who is trained, can help that man, this type of man, in your office.
So that type of man I see in substance abuse. And a lot of my work with men is based on addictions and compulsive behaviors. And so men with that attitude, this is a personality thing, right? And so that level of entitlement, I can do what I want, whatever I want, often leads directly to abuse, but it also leads to addiction. And so when I've worked with men like that, there's individually nothing I can do for them. You understand? And I know that. But in the group setting, when they are challenged by other men this is men have a hierarchy. So if the man that's the biggest man in the room, right, puffs up in chest and it's like, why are you talking to women like that? Now we got a different situation, right? Now I'm in a cut just facilitating what's happening because this is a narrative that only they can fix. This is not a women's issue. This is a men's issue. This don't have nothing to do with us. This is about them. And they want us to be involved in it when it's not about women. This is how men relate to other men. This is men challenging other men. There are men that are doing this kind of work. They just don't have the profile that they need to have. But there are men that are actively saying, she is not your rehab. She's not your rehab. And this advocate is out of New Zealand. And I found him on YouTube because his mom was beaten to death. She was
Whoa.
beaten to death and he witnessed his mom being beat. And so he started this organization called She's Not Your Rehab. And it's for his cultural group in New Zealand because they struggle a lot with domestic violence and gender inequality. And so he's a barber. He goes around the world talking about how men can heal so that they stop projecting all of their problems onto women. But it takes men like that doing the work. It's nothing I could say, nothing. And if you think about it, I always put it in context. And I'm a professor, right? And I love that people, I only do therapy. No, I'm a college professor. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like a college professor. And I had the biggest disruption in my class. I taught a cultural competency class. I literally almost had a riot in my class, right? This is at UNLV. All I did was write a timeline on the board. And I just talked about Black people and women gaining rights. 1965 Civil Rights Voting Act, right? 1974, women are allowed to own a property in their own name. 1974, I was born in 1978. And I talked about that timeline and the small number of years that women have made leaps and bounds of progress. And when you add race onto that, we're looking at 35 years. 35 years that women have had opportunity and we have knocked it out of the park. We've knocked it out of the park. We have been undefeated in business ownership, home ownership, healing, raising children. And we have done in less than 40 years what they couldn't do in 400. And that's why they are upset. That's why they are upset. Because it's like you created this system to keep us out. The moment we had access, we surpassed you in every single way. How does that happen? How does that happen? How do we surpass you in every single way? And you did everything to keep us down.
Yeah. In
Everything.
a system built for them. I actually find that, I don't know what the word is, but amazing.
Amazing. This is a system they created for their advancement. But the moment we had an ounce of access, we just showed up and showed out. When women and when people of color are given an opportunity, we excel. We excel. This is about access and resources, and they don't like it.
So I watched something, and I wish I could tell the story better, but I watched something about a group in the UK, and there was a system in this, maybe it was a workplace, I don't know, that was sort of quota based, meaning it had to include a certain number of women, a certain number of minorities and so on. And men were upset. Obviously, it used to be just like men get the job or men get whatever. And then it switched because people argued and they wanted it to be having more access to a more broad and inclusive group. But men got upset. So then they demanded that it go back to a merit based system. Well, you know what happened? Every leader was a woman. And then it was
Of
interesting
course.
because men were like, well, wait a second, there needs to be some men here. That's not fair. Oh, do you mean that you need to have a minimum number of men? So you do want to make sure that there's inclusion. You just want to make sure that you're in that inclusion. And it reminds me of a bit abusive man who wants fairness, but only when he feels like he's not getting his fair share. But when women or minorities are not getting their fair share, nobody cares. That's irrelevant. If his wife, if his girlfriend doesn't feel that their relationship is balanced, that's her problem. But as soon as it affects him, that becomes a real issue.
Exactly. Our relationships are a microcosm of what's happening in the larger community, in the larger ecosystem. And so what you see is someone feeling like equality is an aggression against them. And someone feeling like access means that they are somehow denied. And so in relationships where women are saying, listen, this is me, right? I have my rights. I can communicate. I have my bodily autonomy. I want to communicate with you directly. I'm not being manipulative. I'm asking you a question. And men will be like, well, what do you mean? Why are you doing this? Why? And this diffusion because the refusal to accept responsibility. Let's have a conversation and let's be plain, but they cannot do that because they want to deal in emotions and we want to deal in facts. And this goes to the larger society as well. When we talk about facts, it's want, 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 want. But the way someone feels is what gets people really riled up. And in our relationships, trying to hold men accountable for their behavior is the same thing as being a high earning woman in the workplace and dealing with the male boss who's doing whatever he can to prevent you from being promoted and from you ascending. This is all the same thing, but it's about scale. This is an individual scale, and that's on a macro scale, if that makes sense.
You look at this power imbalance in relationships and you can see it. I think a good example is what you just said of, she thinks there's a problem, she brings it up, and he deflects and minimizes or gaslights, whatever. Why is he doing that? To maintain his status, his self-described status as above her. He gets to decide if we're having this conversation. Some men I know will just shut the conversation down. I'm not talking about this, but other men will shut the conversation down in a more, I don't know, covert way. And
Exactly.
I don't want to give them too much credit. I fundamentally think they know what they're doing. They're just derailing the conversation, but I don't think that they're sitting there going, how can I derail this conversation? It's just intuitive to them that you don't have a voice. That speaks to their viewpoint, which speaks to you can't change this worldview in individual therapy. Men need to start calling themselves out more. I couldn't even imagine a man saying to another man, you don't pay your child support? I can't be friends with you. You cheat on your wife? I can't be friends with you. I'm not saying no men do that. I'm saying not enough men do that. I'm 100% guaranteed it is the vast minority of men that would ever say that.
Exactly. And what women do that keep this dynamic going when you are trying to talk to a man and they're doing everything to deflect is we start defending ourselves. And once you get into a situation where you're defending yourself and trying to prove your point, then you've created an imbalance. And that is what they want. That's what they want. And so if you're like, and women do this, oh, we go into dissertation mode. Well, I have the text message, I have the receipts, we have exhibit A, exhibit B, C, and D. None of that matters because that's not the issue. The issue is to keep you emotional and to keep you defending yourself. Because now we're talking about why are you so upset? Why are you bringing up the past? We're talking about you and we're not talking about him. And so instead of getting into defense mode, when I work with women, I challenge them, hey, take a step back. Start asking questions. Just start asking questions. Just start being very curious. And this is a life lesson for anyone dealing with anything. If you're really stressed, when you realize your back is against the wall, don't do anything. Just start observing and asking questions. When you feel that, that need to defend, Ask questions. Why is it that I just asked you a question and you didn't respond to it? Instead of trying to prove your point, get him to say the thing. Say it to me. What happened there? Why was that a challenge for you? Is this not a good time for you to talk? Are you feeling a little overwhelmed from work? Are you only able to communicate after you've had some transition time? If so, that's fine. But that even keel, that curiosity, and that seeking clarity is going to save you every time. Emotions are going to get you worked up, choked up, and now you're upset and you're all over the place. That's the goal. As long as you're emotional, you're controllable.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you are emotional, you're controllable.
You're so right. And I've been there. I used to call myself, this is just a phrase that I used, clinically accurate, probably not, but like psychotically enraged. No one on this earth has driven me to the level of rage that my abuser drove me to. Uncharacteristically furious. And it came out that way. Like I would be spitting fire practically, but I fed into it. I fed into it every single time. He was relentless. I say to the women all the time, sometimes they'll stonewall you because that is brutal. Stonewalling didn't affect me because I actually was like, oh, peace. I loved the silence, actually. I was like, thank God. But when he would come at me relentlessly, it worked me up, made me emotional. He would accuse me of things or just even sort of question. Like, he wouldn't give me an accusation like, you were out last night doing something sneaky. He would just say, well, I don't know what you were doing last night. You might have been.
Mm-hmm.
And it would,
Mm-hmm.
like, what are you talking about? And then I would get defensive. So he sucked me in. And then we're not talking about the issue. We're talking about feelings and, God only knows because we're just in a screaming match. That
Right.
being worked up, now you're not focused. That energy is what they want. And I have so learned that, obviously, the hard way, but I teach that. Like, this is why we got to bring it down. I talk a lot about the abusers using calm as a weapon. I'm not saying women should use it as a weapon, but use the calm. Become
Exactly.
calm. And I mean, that's no easy task, I realize. We're emotionally invested. What do you think makes survivors so defensive in the moment? Why do they feel the need?
I think a lot of it is it's pure insanity that these men pretend that the very basic things that they're doing to hurt you, that they don't understand that they're doing them and that they can't relate to you being so hurt. Like this, for me, it would just drive me crazy. Like you learn this in elementary school. You learn this in kindergarten. You don't put your hands on people. You don't push people. You don't call the woman you love names. Why do I have to explain this to you? And that's what's so infuriating because you're like, I saw you on Tuesday be loving and kind. And now it's Thursday. Where did that guy go? So it's so destabilizing and you're trying to get it back. And you're like, okay, if I just communicate, if I just, let me lose the attitude, let me just do my therapy voice and talk that he will understand because surely this is common sense. This is human decency. But if I'm trying to explain being a human being to you, I'm wasting my time. But these men know that if they do, they know you. They know your buttons. They know who silence works with. And they know who these little emotional bombs work with,
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. My father passed when I was younger. When I was 6, my father died. And what my ex would say to me was, well, you never had a dad. So you don't know the way men are supposed to act in the home. You never had a father. And that was such a vulnerability for me, like, oh, I didn't grow up with my dad. I didn't. So I don't know how men act. And that little kernel of truth can be weaponized against you. And now I'm thinking that, is this how men are in the house? Is it how they are? And being able to say, you know what, that's my reality. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. My father died. He was in the military. He supported my family in death. These men have kids now that they ain't taken care of. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm proud of the man that he was. Amen. And he took care of me and he took care of my whole family, living and dead. So you kiss everything. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this ain't what it is. You're not going to make me feel inadequate because my father passed. But instead of jumping into that, why would you bring that up? Why would you say that? Are you trying to make me feel inadequate because I had a family member pass? Why would you say that to me?
See, honestly, that question, are you trying to make me feel inadequate? I can hear his voice. He would say, if you feel inadequate, that's you. Obviously, that's something you need to work on. That's your problem. I'm not telling you that you're inadequate. That's what came up for you. That's on you. and it would
Yeah,
make me angry. It would still work me
of
up. I
course.
think at the end of the day, my calm is leaving. That's my version of calm.
Yeah, and they know they pull those strings, but once you don't give them a reaction, because listen, they start with the love bomb because they get the reaction. So they start with the rose and then they come with the stick. And so then if I give you roses and you're gushing, that doesn't last long. Like the energy, they need the energy. And so when you're upset, when you're yelling, that's energy. They love it. Women have to understand you're sending 13 text messages, they love it. They're laughing. They're sharing it with their friends. They're not reading anything. They love you being upset. This is a turn on for them because they know that they got you. They can control you. They can say something to you. You were having a good day. Now you're a different person. That is power. That is power. And you have to see it as power.
That's sadistic. Do you feel that would lean into that definition that, enjoying someone else being upset and worked up? That's cruel.
It is cruelty, but
Yeah.
power isn't concerned with how it begets power, right? Power is only concerned with power. And so if I can be nice to you and get a reaction, I'll take that. But that reaction is no longer satisfying for me. So I need another reaction. And I'm going to get that by getting you upset and getting you emotional and working you up. And this is the way that these dynamics work. And so there are deeper sociological components to that, right? But until you can get to that top layer of I'm entitled to her time and her energy, I'm entitled to that. Until you can undo that, you can't get to what else is going on here. It's not the other way around.
I feel like, these relationships get so crazy because we are defending ourselves and we get sucked in because abusive men, and I mean, I wish that everybody could understand this about abusive men. I always say if there was one thing I wish people, broadly speaking, could just know is that abusive men are the nicest men you'll ever meet until they aren't. But they start so nice and they don't just, people hear that and they think, okay, well, then when he turns bad, then no, he never turns bad. What happens is he oscillates between kindness and cruelty. So you are destabilized, as you said, but you never know like which way is up. And he promises things. Most abusive men promise that they'll change, not all, but many make this promise. The other category I would say are the ones that just blame you relentlessly and say that you're making it up and it's all your fault. Some oscillate between those two as well. But for the men that are promising change and acting like they don't understand, that keeps us emotional. How can we tell the difference between a man who like literally doesn't get it and would be willing to versus this guy that just absolutely knows and pretends he doesn't?
This is what I see. And this is why I wanted to go to do the couples counseling. Because what I see in my practice and what I've been seeing for the past 10 years is a man will do something like cheating or will do something like punching holes in the wall. I'm in Las Vegas, gambling all the money away and say, I'm going to go get help, right? You found out. They don't come clean and tell you, you got to find out, right? The woman finds out, the man says, I'm going to go to therapy. You can't leave me while I'm trying to get help. All he's doing is buying time, right? All
Mhm.
he's doing is buying time. And so he'll say, I'm going to go get help. You have to wait. I'm going to find a therapist. So then they go, he finds a therapist. I don't like that therapist. I'm going to find another therapist, right? He finds a therapist that tells him the truth. Like, this is your issue and this is going to take time to address. This is not a 4-session, 3-session thing. This is going to take time. He doesn't want to hear that. So he goes and find another therapist, right? And the whole time he's still doing what he said he's getting help for. And whenever he does it, oh, I'm working on it. You can't leave me because I'm working on it. All of this is manipulative. All of it is manipulative. The reality of it is that anyone who is sorry about their behavior wants you to find peace. And they accept that this is my problem that I have to work on. You take care of yourself and be well. But if you stay with me, I can't guarantee that this won't happen again. All I can guarantee is that I'm trying. That's it. That's your choice. I want you to be happy. If you want to leave, fine. But I have to work on me, for me, not to keep you, but for me. That's the difference. And that's not what these men are saying.
No, they do. They absolutely coerce you into staying. I hear often that let's say, even if you've broken up or talking about breaking up and he's doing therapy as some last ditch effort to try to hold on to you, the idea that you have to let him back in or stay so that he can prove to you that he's changing. I always want to bring up to people the real catch-22 here is that you've asked, let's say, to break up or you've asked to stop being treated this way. And what he's saying to you is, no, you need to let me prove to you that I've changed, knowing I'm going to make mistakes. I'm air quoting that, but make mistakes and sort of trip up. And you may still be experiencing this version of me while I'm trying, but I don't care what you want because I want to keep you. I want to stay. I want to have you. What I'm hearing is he hasn't changed because he's hearing you say, I want to break up. And he's like, no, what I want is. So he's already showing you he hasn't changed. So if he tells you that you need to stay or you need to come back to prove, no, he's proving in his question, and which I'm using the term question loosely because it's more like a demand. But the proof is right there. He's not changing. Now, even if he went with good intentions into therapy, like you said, he would let you leave if that's what, and I shouldn't say let, but he should let you leave peacefully if that's what is best for you. If that's what you have determined is best for you. He's mad because it's not best for him. And I think that's his biggest problem, is that he's losing something. Often this change seems to be inspired at the end of the relationship. And when women have said that it's over, and, and feeding a little bit into like when a woman's fed up, right? That there's no coming back. He wants to keep you. And women often describe to me like maybe he's having an epiphany. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Now he sees that I was actually willing to leave. Why did it take you leaving? Why did it take your breaking point? But the answer is because it cost him something now. Now he doesn't get to have you, control you, gain access to you, have all the benefits of being with you. He is affected, and now suddenly he's crying change. But that's not authentic.
It's not authentic at all. And the reason why it's not authentic is because he was not upset about his behavior. His behavior doesn't bother him, it bothers you. And so he doesn't want to lose you, so he can be manipulative as long as it takes to get you to believe that there's some change that has happened. Because unless a person is uncomfortable with what they're doing for them, they're never going to change, ever. They're never going to change. And the reality of it is that if he changes because of you, he's going to go back to that behavior because of you. And so he's saying, if I'm going to stop gambling because I want to keep you, the moment you get him upset, he's going to start gambling because nothing has changed. This is all manipulation. Human behavior is very, very complicated. And the behavior that you are concerned about in your relationship with him, his last 3 girlfriends were concerned about too. The last 5 women in his life had the same complaints. You think you're the first woman that is upset with him because of the way he talks to you. No, this is the way he talks to women. You're not special. He's been doing this for decades. He's not going to change. He's not going to change.
I think people don't change unless they really want to. And even then, we're not talking about narcissists. They can't change regardless. But even your average man, average person is not going to change unless they really try and they make a massive investment. And I think even if therapy doesn't work for this type of man, but therapy in general, like what do you need? Like a decade of therapy, weekly or biweekly? The time investment and the financial investment that actually takes. And then how much do you really change unless you start to see women differently? It goes back to the worldview and the belief system. And that you can't just unpack entitlement and the entire system of the patriarchy in 5 therapy sessions. It's crazy.
What was a big turning point for me is I thought about the nicest man that I've ever met in my life. The nicest man, the most kind man, and his name is Cosmos. And gentle, loving. And I thought to myself, what would it take to turn this? And I've known him since I was 14 years old. So over 30 years, I've known this man, and he's been consistent. What would it take to turn him into a violent, abusive man? What would have to happen in his life to make him become violent and abusive toward women? He's this big dude. His mom is this little white lady, little hippie white lady, and he is the most gentle human you can imagine, right? Salt of the earth, right? What would it take to take that man and make him into the type of men that you and I have dated, where he's screaming and yelling and accusing you of things? What shift would have to happen in his life for him to become that person? Because essentially, what women are saying is you want a man that's abusive to make a shift and become that man. Look at it from the other way. What would happen to this man? I've known him that can make him that man. What? You think therapy? What do you think would happen to mentally get him to the point to start being abusive?
An abusive man would say disrespect.
Never. Never.
What does that even mean
Never.
from men? I tell
What does
you, I
that
don't trust
mean?
them.
Because they believe that inside every man is this abusive man that's waiting to come out under the right conditions of disrespect by women, when in fact, that's not true. That's not true. But what we are led to believe is inside of every abusive man is this gentle man waiting to come out. And the right woman can access that gentle man and get that gentle man to come out. That's nonsense. That's
Mm.
nonsense. So what will it take? What will it take to take that man and make him an abuser?
My bet is nothing because it's his nature,
Nothing.
and
Exactly.
he's socialized, shockingly in a patriarchy and turned out this way. I want to credit his mom and credit, his upbringing for sure, and his own willingness to back against these things and be a good man. That's incredible. I
Yes,
love hearing that because,
absolutely.
I'm a person who's constantly called a misandrist and a man hater, and I sit here and I think I have a wonderful father. I have a wonderful brother. My brother is like the most calm, rational, loving, good man. He's my older brother. I've seen him my whole life. I've seen this. So like I know there are good men. I have a son. I'm raising him to be a wonderful man. I am engaged to a great man. I do not hate men. I hate abusive men. And when I talk about what they do and how they behave, and men hear that I hate men, what I hear is you think all men behave this way. You think all men can be provoked by women. I get a little sarcastic online, especially. I'm like, wow, you really hate men. Like I say that to men. You really think so little of men. You think that men have no self control and men aren't capable of regulating their emotions. Wow, I think way more highly of men than you do.
Exactly. Because we've seen men. I have worked with men. I've worked in prisons. Do you understand what I'm saying? I've worked in prisons with COs. I've worked in prisons with men who are there for doing heinous things. And they would say to me, I would never let anything happen to you, Aisha. You don't have to worry. You are safe. And I would have to have men standing around me, protecting me when I'm doing my assessments, big men in uniform. Aisha, you safe. I got you. You don't have nothing to worry about. I've been around men who are loving and caring my whole life. That's why I do not accept this nonsense that men cannot be that, because I see it with my own eyes. I have the lived experience of men who would never raise their voice to a woman ever, ever. I've dated men that never yelled at me, never, ever. And so this is real. There are men that are capable of doing it. These men don't want to accept that these other men exist. They are masculine. They are big football players. They make money, but they value and respect women. And so
Yeah.
what is it going to take? We have to ask. You want this man to become something totally different than what he is, and you think that's going to happen overnight? You honestly think that's going to happen overnight?
Not a
No,
chance.
not a chance. No, that's not going to happen. It's not.
I feel like as women who are in some of these really abusive relationships, I don't want to call them toxic, abusive relationships with men that are claiming to not understand and claiming that you didn't say it right and you didn't say it the right time and use the wrong words or, the semantics that we get into. Like, I didn't call you a bee. I said you were acting like a bee and all these things, right? We need to shift from I need him to get it to I need to get myself out. That's it. I need to give up on this man and figure out how to give up on that man. When you accept that he has heard you, it is like taking off handcuffs in my view. It feels like walking out of a cage. You actually can just say to yourself, he knows. I have a really basic way. It's so simple and so basic. And I'm almost being sarcastic, but I'm not. And I would love you to even tell me I'm wrong if I am. When women say, I don't think he understands, I don't think he gets it. If you did to him what he's doing to you, is he cool with that? The answer is always no, right? Oh my God, are you not even freak out? Cool. So he understands the behavior is bad. Cool. So he only doesn't see it as bad when it's happening to you. What does that say about how he sees you or women, but probably both? But it's so simple. He doesn't understand that he's hurting me. Did you say you're hurting me? Yeah, I tell him all the time. And he still does it? So he knows. Like, I don't feel we need to make it harder than that. I know there's context and nuance. I get it. And I'm sure we could, record 25 more minutes of talking about just that. But like that oversimplification still makes sense to me. It's that simple.
It is. And it's what I typically say is you don't respect him. I challenge women, you don't respect him, because if you respected him, then you would respect him as an adult. And as an adult, you said something to him. Y'all both speak the same language, right? Okay, we all speak in English. And you spoke English and you said something to him and he acted like he didn't understand what you were saying. And so you trying to dumb it down for him, why would you do that to him? That's disrespectful and that's invalidating. Respect him. He said that he heard you and now he's minimizing you. What are you going to do? Don't tell me what you want him to understand. Tell me what you're going to do about the disrespect and harm that you are experiencing. Give him what he wants. He's telling you, you know what? You're doing this. I heard you. Okay, respect yourself and respect him. He's committed to misunderstanding you. If you're talking to another adult and he's not able to communicate with you, then you need to be talking to a different adult, period.
I said what I said. You know what I mean? That like I said words. He and I are speaking the same language. He understands words. This is a deeper issue and I'm not his rehab center. I have loved that. Women are not rehab for men. I heard that a few years ago. I've loved it ever since because we are expected to be. And we are expected to regulate men with our bodies and with our arguments and with our energy by doing and providing service to them. And
But that's
these
that's
men,
disrespectful.
I
That's
agree.
disrespectful. And this is another thing that bothers me about people being like, "Oh, you hate men." Do I hate men or do I treat men as adults? Do I hold men accountable for their behavior as thinking adults? Now, you figured out how to play basketball, right? You ain't have no court. The court was all tore up, jacked up. You figured out how to play basketball. You can figure out how to communicate without raising your voice because you don't talk to your boss that way. You don't talk to your friends that way, but you feel entitled to come home and do it. So I'm going to hold you to a level of responsibility based on your age and your capacity. So if you're not at age level, then you're not someone I should be interacting with. If you don't have the communication skills of an adult, then I need to be talking to another adult. So I'm going to challenge you to be the adult that you say you are. I'm going to give you the respect that you ask for. I'm going to respectfully leave you the hell alone because you're not meeting my needs. And there is someone who will. This is very simple, exactly like you're saying it. This is very simple. This is not complicated. Respect these men as adults. And an adult is telling you that they speak the same language you do, but for whatever reason, they don't understand what you're saying. Go talk to a man who does. Simple.
Yeah. And they
Simple.
exist. That's like, ladies,
They exist.
those men exist. Now, I do want to note that we're not saying like, go leave, like that's the easiest thing in the world, but it is about what are you going to do to get yourself to be able to leave, over
You can do something.
like a trauma bond, figuring out your
Right.
finances. I'm not making it sound easy, I realize, but you do need to make the choice and then figure out how to take the actions, whether that's a long-term plan or whatever it is that we need. But unlearning the habit of over-explaining and trying to get him to understand something that he already understands is the key here. Like we have to be able to accept that he does know. And I'm telling you, the most freeing thing is he already knows. Self-respect is the action of showing yourself that you know that you are worth more than this. So I really encourage women to work on that. He heard you, he understands you, and he chose to hurt you. There's nothing confusing about that. It is an active choice.
No, he's making a choice. He's doing exactly what he wants to do. He knows what he's doing is hurting you. He's looking directly at you as you cry. He sees the fear on your face. He sees your body language. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Any of us would stop. If you notice someone, if you're joking and you can see someone's face change, like, oh, that went too far. Like that touched a nerve. Ouch. You would stop. Last thing, I don't want to hurt anyone. He sees you crying and he's still yelling at you. He's still yelling. You're crying. You're basically begging him to stop and he won't stop. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. You have to care. Your task is to learn how to center yourself again, how to care enough about yourself to create safety for yourself. And that takes time, but you have to have a response to someone harming you. And the response is not, let's talk more about that. That's not the response. The response is not, let's go to therapy and talk about it. That's not the response. The response is, how do I keep myself safe in the face of someone who has shown me they don't care about my safety? What does that look like?
I love that. Amazing advice and amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to tag all of your socials so that people can find you and watch more of your content. Because I'm telling you, you drop some insane truth bombs constantly. Every time I see them up, I'm like, oh, get ready. So I'm so excited to be able to share you with more people. So thank you so much for being here and reminding us all that he knows and he won't change.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me.